Welcome to Imperial World School Parent Academy. Supporting every child, together.
Today's session will be basically talking more about how the education, the way we are looking at education has been shifted globally, and then even in Nepal, we have been actually practicing, we have been actually trying to see education from a new perspective. So today's session is going to be what is being practiced around the world and what things we have been seeing. And I would like to focus or emphasize more on, as a parent, how we can adopt, how we can actually practice the things with the children at home, and how we can also be a collaborative partner in this joint venture or joint journey of educating your child so that they are well prepared, not only for the exams, but also for a rapidly changing world. So I'd quickly like to go over the main agenda. So I'll be talking briefly about contemporary education and the transition between traditional education and contemporary education, and moving away more in the exam-oriented thinking, and then the competition that to prepare our students, then parents' role, the partnership with the parents in educating our kids to be future ready. And then we'll have a formal question and answer session. So I have actually addressed some of the questions that you have, but some of the questions were also very personal, that is focused mainly to the child. So those kind of questions will be addressed during informal talk. So during the informal talk at the end, you can reach out to me, or you also have one or two people around here who have been practicing different things with the kids, so that will be an opportunity for us to talk a little bit more personally. If you have any things. But today's session is mainly going to be understanding the education training now. So some of the questions that I have noticed, focusing more on AI, how to manage that, digital literacy, those sort of things. We definitely have those things in plan. So we'll be running more sessions on Parents Academy where we try to address those issues. So as I mentioned, the session has the 3 phases, which was also communicated with you. Before we dive in, I would like you all to think about this one question. Think about what skills help you right after school in your workplace. Let's take a moment. Maybe that would be teamwork, that would be a communication skill, that would be a problem-solving skill. I assume we all came from very traditional education background where most of the classes were about competition, building the content knowledge. So let's take a moment to think about it. The thing that we really need to understand, the world that our children are going to live is going to be totally different. That we may have started to envision now with the rapid changes that we have seen in the past few years, but definitely it's kind of unknown to us. Nowadays, in the recent years, whether it could be like searching for any information, preparing like some sort of the work, or if you're looking for some sort of problem solving, how much we rely on AI. Okay, so the world has completely changed. Think about, and when it had changed, as I mentioned earlier, the job that we see in the market, it may not exist. And some of the examples that we see, remember in the 90s, Kodak that used to be dominated the photography. With the digital photography, now it has completely vanished. Similarly, you can see, just imagine the Aladdin carpet that used to be a fantasy, but now there is self-driven car, already there is like driverless taxi and the drone service, all of these things are possible now. Similarly, you can see the remote surgery that has been saving lives in the remote areas. Similarly, you can see even like the giant companies are not immune to this. I recently read a news that Volkswagen have to shut down one of the plants in Tianjin in China because of the development in EV, especially because of the BYD. And remember, like when we started to use mobile in early 2000, Motorola and Nokia used to be big, but it's hard to see now in the market. So basically, we have to teach our kids to adapt with the changing environment. Otherwise, it's really hard to survive in the changing world. As you can also see, with the new advancement in the technology, there will be limitless opportunities. But one thing for sure, with the limitless opportunities, it's also going to be a lot of challenges that we can't even imagine today, and that is still unknown to us. So we have to teach our kids, or we have to make sure that kids will adapt the adaptable skill for the changing world. And they need to have a growth mindset to cope up with the fast changing world. So here, I just want to talk about the traditional education system that mostly prevail, still like prevail all over the world, talking in Nepal. Like how when we study, we focus too much on memorizing the fact, there was too much interest in the content knowledge, and teacher who could actually explain things clearly in the classroom used to be the best teacher, right? How many of you actually try to resemble this with your own experience? You might have already performed really well in the exams, but whenever it comes to the public speaking, how we used to feel, like saying something in public, right? And if you look at the children today, even I would say I was here for many exit point in last 2 months, and even the grade 1 kids, they're so confident to talk in front of the children, in front of the public, right? So that has been changed. And another important thing that I would say, adaptability. That is the important skill, and if we fail to adapt with the changing environment, definitely we may vanish easily in the future, okay? So also, driven by the fourth industrial revolution, it demands, because of the change in the automation, AI, and competition, it demands a skill that is transferable, and that will also make the students future ready. And when I mean transferable, think about, do you remember what you learned in grade 10 science? Do you remember what you learned in social studies when you were in grade 8? Probably much of those things is temporary, right? But what will retain with you throughout your life is the skill that you have developed. And this is why the education is actually changing in that direction. So even the employees, if you look at the employees nowadays, they're looking for the individuals, not only who has excelled in the academically, but who can be a good teamwork, who can actually work on teamwork, who can collaborate, who could be a good problem solver, who could be communicator, and most importantly, who can adapt with the changing world. Because we never know what future is going to serve to us in next week or in near future. So here, I would just like to share 2 examples from Google and also the LinkedIn. So basically, I summarized the idea. Basically, what are the skills that they're looking for in the new employee? So if you look at here, in both excerpts, you'll easily find out they're not just looking at academic excellence, but more, they're looking at the soft skills like leadership, they're looking at adaptability, and then creativity, problem solving. So these are the essential skills that we have to ensure that kids will have when they grow. And let's look at these 2 examples. If you look at students A and student B here, the top grades struggle in group work, adapting. And that is one thing that resonates with me also. I actually came from same Nepali education background, completed my master's in chemistry from TU. And when I was in an interview for a teacher preparation program in the DC, one of the things my counselor told me, you came from a South Asia education background where there is much emphasis in competition. But in this system, first thing that you have to adapt is how to be collaborative rather than competitive, so that will lead to the success for everyone. And the next one you see, the moderate grades, but excels in teamwork, stays calm under the pressure, and demonstrate creative problem solving. So which student do you think is better here? Who will be better prepared for today's world? Of course, student B, right? So here, I just like to talk a little bit few about, and when I mention grade here, and of course, you probably are familiar with different practices, assessment practices around the world, but I would like to emphasize the grade here. I'm referring to the traditional grading system, and I would say that is still, dominating in Nepali education system. So mostly the grades, they reflect how well students can recall the information taught, and because of that, it fails to assess the skills like emotional intelligence, creativity, and resilience. When a student sits for a 3 hours exam or 2 hours exam, how can that students have time to show the creativity? How can students like flourish in the creativity or the imagination in that limited time? So even our structured exam is also limiting us from assessing those kind of essential skills. So many graduates, you can see, they may have performed really well, excel academically, but when they go to the workplace, they still struggle. So they need some time to adapt with the working culture. So like that means our existing academic system or the exam system is not preparing our kids well enough to be in the workplace. So some of the modern assessment, I can talk about a little bit example of a Carnegie Foundation approach where they prioritize collaboration, perseverance, and empathy. I'm also going to share a few examples in a bit, which focuses more on developing those skills. As you can also see, a report from OECD about the future education and skills for 2030 emphasizes not only the academic structure, but skills like adaptability, emotional intelligence, and creativity strongly influence the employability and well-being and the lifelong learning. Here, I can see when I was actually going through the questions that parents had asked, some of the questions are about they were really worried about the AI, right? How AI is impacting the children. But one thing for sure that we need to understand, the machine learning is not human, right? So they don't have emotional intelligence. They cannot be human at all. So definitely there is a threat, but with the proper technique, with the proper technique, the education system, education organization, and parents, we have to actually teach how our kids can actually humanize the learning. And I'll go over some examples in a bit. I'm sorry. So even the World Economic Forum has emphasized the 3 important skills: problem solving, creativity, and resilience. Similarly, the non-cognitive skills, they are like more predictable in the long term than just performing well in the exams or in a standardized test. Here, I would like to share an example. So I have been teaching AP programs. So AP programs is basically advanced placement, which is a first semester course taught in high school, in American school. And this is the program that I have been teaching since 2008. There used to be much emphasis on big ideas, the content knowledge. But this is a change in recent years. So rather than assessing only the content knowledge, now we started to assess only on science practices. These are the skills. So the content knowledge is just the driving force to assess this standard. Recently, I also attended a short course by Stanford University, which we call SPA, that is Short Performance Assessment. So even the assessment practices actually been shifting rather than just taking the standardized test. So here, I'm not going to show because it's going to take time, but you can see there is an example of deer population SPA. So they actually came up with the real data of the declining population in deer in Colorado. And this is the test for middle school, where they actually compare the declining population graph, and they have to actually come up with the idea. And along with this, there were like different components added to that. So one of the things with this assessment was also teaching how to be empathized with the declining population of the deer. Similarly, some of the other examples you can see, instructional embedded assessment that has also been practiced. So, of course, like sometimes when I see, when we say the project, it's not only about, making a portfolio or making a poster presentation, right? So that could be a great learning opportunity where kids can actually connect and explore the real world problems. I can give an example of the material research project. So this is a case where in grade 9, students had just started to learn about chemistry. And unlike our education system, in American education system, there is not a strong foundation about chemistry when they start high school. So this is about like two months after they started to learn about basic atoms. You can imagine. So we start with teaching what is an atom, start teaching how to use periodic table, and this is in about 2 weeks' time. They do this research project where we assign different materials like cooking pan, Gore-Tex material, and they have to do the research and they have to explain how does things work and how is it being useful. So if you give that sort of opportunity, students can do it. And I have been doing that project for about 5-6 years. Some other examples, CAS, that is creativity, activity. It's a creativity, activity, and project service project. That is a thing that they do in IB. Similarly, like some alternative assessment approach. I would like to give one example. There was one student 2 years ago. She struggled to write. And of course, we had that report that we have to come up with some sort of alternative assessment. When I talk to her one-to-one, she can explain things, but whenever she sits for the exam, she could barely write anything. She used to struggle writing. So if you just rely on one way of like taking the exam, then definitely we're not going to understand their understanding, right? So that's why we may have to come up with some sort of like alternative assessment track, and then like making poster and other project, but it has to be authentic and meaningful. And there are some strategy, and those are the things that we have also been working here at IWS. Here are some things that school can do. Rather than going over everything, I'd just like to quickly summarize things that we can do here. As you can see, the project-based learning is a good way to connect things with the real-world application. Then collaborative assessment, when we do the group work assess, that may also help to minimize the anxiety among the students when it has been graded. The portfolio assessment, that will help them for the self-regulation. Role play and simulation are a good way to make students empathize. You can also like put them in a scenario where if you were in this scenario, and then think about like living under the poverty. You have all of these limitations. How would your life going to look like, right? So that could be an example. Reflecting journal, soft skill rubrics, and this is something Imperial is also trying to come up with in near future. We have been working on this one. Design and innovation challenges, those are like really, really important. A few things that you have also noticed, we have started Design and Innovation Hub this year. Similarly, integrating sustainable development goals. So there has been these are some strategies that school can do. But today's session is mainly about the parents. So I would like to quickly skip on this one and focus mainly on, these are the 5 competencies recognized by UNESCO and World Economic Forum. I would like to quickly talk about a few of these things. So think about critical thinking and problem solving. Rather than talking about that, I would like to give an example. What does that look like? Think about a Nepali young engineer in 2035 working in remote village on solar water panel with the limited resource that he or she is going to have, where he or she has to make instant decision with limited resources that he has. Creativity and innovation, think about an engineer or entrepreneur in Nepal who is trying to build earthquake resistant building at a lower cost using the local resources. Emotional intelligence and empathy. Think about a teacher who has to run a class right after natural disaster, where teaching content is as important as understanding the students' emotion there, and then thinking about their well-being. When I say digital literacy, think about a journalism student in Nepal is thinking about the credibility of the image and the misinformation that false image can give before posting in social media. Think about collaboration. A student in Nepal is collaborating on controlling the plastic waste with his students in Japan or his students in Kenya, right? Working across the globe in different time zone and in different culture. All of these things, definitely needs a driving component, which is going to be the content. But what's more important is these skills are transferable, and they can use that skill in any areas that they're going to work. Recently, I actually attended today's workshop, and on this one, I was really fascinated by the title itself, Growing Tomorrow's Citizen in Today's Classroom. Actually, this book is signed by one of the authors. He was actually the presenter. So in this book, this is based on the research. They have identified 7 competencies that is essential for today's world or 21st century students. Here you can see some of the examples. Rather than going about what they are, I would like to talk a little bit about what we can do at home to help our students acquire these skills. Now, think about self-regulation. 𝐷𝐸 is going to come very soon, right? And of course, that comes with a lot of family commitments. You may have to travel, you may have to visit different family members. But at the same time, school is also probably going to assign some homework, right? So encouraging them to make a schedule where you clearly discuss what are the expectations of visiting family, where you're traveling. So if you share that and make them make their own schedule for completing the assignment, that could be one thing that we can do to encourage the self-regulation. Think about critical thinking. So generally, probably this generally happens when kids are kind of young, but as they start to grow, then probably the distance between parents and the children also start to grow along with the age, right? But if you could actually manage a time where you sit together and start asking some sort of critical thinking question, that could be a table talk during your dinner, or that could be talk around some other time. Think about what is the significance of having some specific food in different auspicious occasions? Like, why do we eat dahi chura in Asar Pandra? Rather than just say, we eat dahi chura in Asar Pandra, have that discussion with the kid. Try to make them think scientifically. What could be a reason of eating dahi chura in Asar Pandra? Similarly, recently we had Janai Purnima. What is the purpose of eating quanti during that time? So there, make them think scientific reason, and also try to connect with the culture, right? Some other activities could be, asking, in the monsoon time, you might have read a lot of newses, right, about the floods and all. So maybe you can also ask them to compare, why do you think this year there are more floods in the monsoon than last year? So that will encourage them to do some sort of critical thinking. So that sort of discussion is definitely going to be helpful. Now, creative thinking. You can also encourage your child. I'll just take most the context in Nepali context. So in Dasai, nowadays we also limit our kids to go and fly kites, but that's our culture, right? In Dasai we fly kites. If you could come up with some sort of innovative ideas, for example, can you do something, maybe a halogen balloon to take the flight of the kite, right? So rather than just trying. So try to do those sort of things, collaboration. So maybe you can make students, your children in charge of organizing a picnic with a cousin, for a family picnic. And communication. So one thing here, I would like to encourage parents to be very active listening, right? To be very active listener. Oftentimes, whenever they have different opinion, listen to them respectfully, even if they have different opinion, and try to ask the rationale. If they're trying to do something different that you do not want, ask the rationale, ask the logic behind it, right? And that is how we can actually teach them how to communicate more effectively. And whenever we talk about social competency, you also need to demonstrate some sort of activity, how you're involved in your community, right? That could be, cleaning the toll, so cleaning camping in the toll, maybe blood donation. So how you're actually involved in those. And now the last one, habits of mind. So this is a time where we want to encourage our students to think or reflect, right? For example, if you're not succeeding, asking questions like, what will you do differently next time? So that could be in a game, right? That could be in the academics. So for example, if you bring a puzzle game and the students is your children is struggling to solve that puzzle, talk about some scaffolding rather than just giving the answer, rather than just telling how to solve it. So those could be some of the strategies. Here, these are the few things as a parent we can try at home. That is an attempt to move away from exams. As you can see, let's try to celebrate the effort rather than grades. For example, if students excel, get 10 out of 10, right? Rather than saying, I'm really proud of you, you performed really well in the exam, talk about the effort he actually put into to achieve that, right? Similarly, you can see encourage the real-life problem solving. So involve them in decision making. For example, if you're planning for travel, involve them in that planning part. Involve them to do some research. Similarly, you can also see opportunity for the creativity. I don't know how much we actually are involved with the students in day-to-day life, right? For example, maybe when kids are at the young age, we're involved in playing with them, we play with them, but as they grow old, maybe we may have to come up with some sort of age-appropriate activities. For example, you can go for cycling trip. You can. That could be your daily, a weekly routine, right? On Saturday you go for cycling, but also teach them how to fix the minor issues in the cycling. So that could be an activity you can do. Similarly, model adaptability and empathy. So basically, you are the role model to your kids. That's what they also say, apple doesn't fall far apart from the tree. So basically, how you're going to perform in a situation when you face challenges, how you're interacting, they're going to look up to you. And that's why you have to model that empathy and adaptability. And most importantly, that I would like to emphasize here, create a balanced routine. Nowadays, we have seen many kids excelling at really, really early age, right? So what we do, we have such a tight schedule for our kids. Early in the morning, you send them to the school. Right after school, you probably have so many activities already planned. They have to go for swimming lesson, they have music lesson, then they go for futsal, and then they also have to go for art. But when is the time for relaxation? When is the time for, for them to relax and think and rejuvenate from all of those tiring activities? So even the research has shown the unstructured play is really, really important for the better cognitive development. But at the same time, it's also important for them to be involved in all of these activities. Now, important thing is also encourage the reflection. So a few of the things that we can do here, like dinner time or like whenever you get time, ask them some questions like, what did you learn today that was not in the class? So rather than just asking about academics, ask some sort of empathy question, some sort of group activities they did, some sort of challenge that they faced in the school, right? So also reduce the exam pressure. And one of the things that we probably have all faced ourselves, but I think now we are more aware. That's why we probably have already stopped comparing. But if you're doing that, I think we need to stop that, right? And also reinforce the learning for lifelong, right? Lifelong process, not only for the exams. The one clear message that you want to give to your kid, that could be in different ways, right? You have got your own bonding with the children, but a clear message that your students must understand, you care about how they think, how they solve problems, and how they treat other people, not just the score they're going to get in exam. That's a clear message you want to deliver to your kids. Here are some of the examples, because I feel if I share some examples that might be helpful. So I'm just going to go over this briefly. Always having a predictable learning space is useful, and this is backed up by some research also. So that could be even a study area, and if your child is small, probably they don't have the separate room. If they have a separate room, designate a specific area for learning. That generally helps. It is also based on the American Psychological Association. And then also try to relate learning with day-to-day activities. For example, here, cooking momos together. So when you make momo, talk about fraction. When you're actually combining the minced meat with different vegetables, talk about the portion. So that's a good way to recall fraction. Similarly, there are different patterns. So that is about the creativity. So even the momo making activity can help. And you can also connect with the vaporization, like a science concept there, right? You can also connect that with the culture. So if you see dumpling or 𝐂𝐤𝐬𝐲, there are so many different things around the world that resonates with our momo. So that could be a good way to make that culture connection. When you travel, talk about that. Similarly, visiting a local har bazaar or market, farmers market. Nowadays we have also seen the trend in Nepal. Saturday there are farmer markets. Give a specific budget. Choose them, ask them to make the choices of the snacks, and also be rational. If they're making the choices of taking too much sugar, you can have that conversation, right? So that could be some of the activities. Gardening in balcony or yard. Then you can talk a lot of things about science, and not only science, also about the culture. And then let the children explain in their own. So this is also one of the studies from the Harvard Graduate School. When you ask students to explain what they've learned in different language, that actually helps. For example, if they recite a poem in lower class, if they could actually explain or translate that into Nepali, that actually helps them. And also try to give the choices, especially when you're helping your kids with the homework, rather than saying start with math homework, start with this, give them the choice. In that way, you're already starting to build that culture of independency. Here are some of the starter. So, of course, this is not the standard process, but you have got your own way of communicating with the children. But this could be some of the examples. And here are like some of the activities that we can do. Now, how do you partner with the school? Rather than just waiting for PTM when there is a call from school, try to reach out, try to understand the approach that school is trying to adopt. Right? So that could be through email, that could be through school app. I think in case of IWS, probably the school app. And if you're actually coming to drop the child, take a moment, find out the teacher, talk to them about the progress. Ask solution-based question. And you can see an example, instead of just asking, how is my child doing? What can we do together to support his writing? So try to be more specific, identify the area that you want to focus on, rather than just saying, how is my child doing? How is his math work, right? So you could be more specific. And then you can join the school events. Sometimes, we all understand that we have got our own job and other responsibilities. So you may not be able to join every small activities or event at school. But there are different ways of following what the school is doing. That could be social media platform, read the messages sent, or the newsletter. That is a way to get aware of like what's happening in the school. And it is also important for us to understand the school culture, right? If school has adopted inquiry-based learning approach, then following similar pattern at home is going to be helpful. Here are some of the sentence starter or conversation starter that you can practice when you communicate with the teachers. And there are different ways that you can partner effectively with the school. Now, this was a question about social or well-being. So I tried to address here with these things. So normalize emotion. There could be time where your children could be stressed out, where your children may have emotional breakdown. So communicating with the children, it is perfectly okay to have that kind of emotional breakdown. So normalizing different emotion is really, really important. If they want to cry, sometimes let them cry, because that will also relieve the stress, right? And similarly, I already mentioned about this, try to praise the effort rather than the scores. And model healthy stress management. So when you see your child is struggling or stressed, you can also take him for a walk. Maybe drink. I would say drinking coffee, tea, but probably that's more suitable for adult. Try to offer juice or water, and involving encourage them to take a break from the activity that is stressing them out, and then be involved with them. It is important for them to maintain that social time and play time. So here are some of the the conversation starter that you can use. And fostering the emotional well-being alongside the academic is really, really important. So you have to look at the student's routine, your child's routine, the balance, the workload with the rest, validate their emotion, build resilience. And sometimes, whenever they're struggling, we tend to give the solution right away so that, they can complete the task. So rather than completing that, scaffold, help them, because that is the only way you can build the resilience skill. Because, if you just give the solution, they will be over-dependent on the teachers, over-dependent on the adult, right? And celebrate the effort, not just the result, and teach the self-care. So, you have to have a conversation, especially if you have a teenager or, students in higher grades, look at their overall the sleep track, the sleeping habit. And even, I generally deal with the high school students. I generally wake up really, really early in the morning, and I see some of the students are still awake till 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and it could be doing some sort of project work and all, but sometimes they waste a lot of time, playing with the screen, different games there. So keeping track of all of those things are also important. And here are some of the opportunities that I would say encourage them with the age-appropriate activities during vacation. right? And one thing that we need to understand is not just to engage them, but it has to be meaningful learning and has to be authentic. So rather than just sending to any winter camp, summer camp, do some research. Look, what exactly they're going to learn from there, right? It should not be just an opportunity because you're busy, that's why you want to keep them engaged. What learning is happening there? And then you can also involve students in community service. I can give one example. There was a student long time back from Singapore, like a Nepali student, but like she was grew up in Singapore. She was here for vacation, and her uncle sent her to Bal Mandir once, and that had changed the whole perspective. That was actually like a moment where she stopped complaining about everything. She started to show the gratitude to the parents. Just having like 2 sessions of serving in Bal Mandir had changed her life. So start thinking about that sort of thing, because especially our kids are so much privileged nowadays, and they take everything for granted, right? But just seeing what could also happen on the other end, just like visiting orphanage, doing some sort of community service in those areas, can also change the perspective. So there are like some other things also. I don't know how much is in practice here, but if you have a kid in high school grade, starting from grade 9, a lot of good universities, they also offer summer institute, and that could also be career-related intensive. So I generally write like about 10, 12 recommendation letter for students in about April, where they actually join a lot of summer camping from different institute in USA, in UK, or in European countries. Probably that is not in practice, but that will also be an area for you to explore. Similarly, like whenever you go for a family trip, be present there, right? Generally what we see, we complain about our kids using too much screen time, but think about whenever we go for travel, how much time we spend trying to solve our business, like being engaged in the phone, versus spending quality time with the children, right? And one of the way, I think the board game culture is also developing. Growing up, we used to have Ludo, Carrom, but those are the only board games that we used to have. But now I think the things are changing. I recently also saw something in the Shark Tank. There is actually a group was actually presenting a board game that is related to the Nepali culture. So I don't know, I haven't actually done some research, but that could be some way to get connected. And board games are also really, really useful. And I have seen in the US, most of the family, whenever they go for a vacation, the board game is essential. Like while traveling in the airport, I think is kind of growing culture in Nepal, but besides that, there are like a lot of other things. Do some research, like there are STEM-related activity, problem-solving activities, so you can use that as a part. And then balance structured activities with unstructured downtime. That is really, really important. So saying this, I'm towards the end of the session. What we need to understand, the world will be changing drastically in next 10 and 20 years, right? Here, we are to prepare our kids for next 50 years for the world that we are even not sure. We don't know what's going to be in 10 to 20 years, right? So what we need to focus on here, we have to teach our students to learn new skills and technology as they come. We have to teach our kids to face the challenges with resilience, and then collaborate in diverse teams across the culture and discipline, and lead with empathy and integrity for the environment. So at this point, if you have any formal questions, we'll take some moments, and after that, we'll have informal session where we can also have a one-to-one session, and if you have time, you can stay. I'll be here for a while. Thank you for listening to me. If you have any question, please share your questions. I'll try to address them.
Welcome to Imperial World School Parent Academy. Supporting every child, together.